To call this council and committee meeting to order. Before we start the meeting, I want to acknowledge that the land upon which we are located is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabe people, many of whom continue to occupy this community. It's also the historic lands of the Adirondack or neutral Indians who have long departed. It's a long and stellar history of stewardship of our lands, and we appreciate being able to participate in this meeting this evening here. Madam Clerk, the roll call, please.
All members of council are present, Your Worship, with the exception of Councillor Zanko.
Thank you. Just have a few brief announcements, and the first two are related and unrelated, and the very first one has to do with what's going on in the Ukraine. Every day brings new surprises as to the extent of the activities of the Russian military. And most recently, we're now getting signs that there may have been actual atrocities very similar to things that happened in the Second World War in Poland. That hasn't been confirmed yet, but it should be troubling to all of us because this type of conduct in a civilized world is certainly shocking and can't be tolerated for long, which places all liberal democracies and countries that adhere to the rule of law in a real predicament going forward as to how to continue to manage what is happening here. The other part, kind of a flip side of the coin, was in Rome at the Vatican this weekend. The Pope made an apology to the indigenous people with respect to their experiences, particularly related to the residential schools in Canada. And as former Grand Chief Phil Fontaine said, it was something that he had not expected to occur so quickly. It is a start, but it's something that perhaps will be completed when the Pope comes to Canada next, I guess this summer. It's a recognition of the things that have occurred and that are now becoming more and more known to our society, particularly the graves, unmarked graves of children. It's hard to imagine that, it's hard to accept that, and it's certainly something that is a blot upon the history of our nation, and something that really should compel us to work towards reconciliation with our indigenous peoples, all of whom are the original stewards of this place that we call Turtle Island. I wanted to move on, and at one point I had some information relative to a road, to the QEW being partially closed during the Mr. Walsh, do you happen to have it with you? I had it marked up. Oh, maybe I've still got it. Hold on. Here we go. I've got it. So the QEW is going to be closed from Gilmore Road to Netherby Road, April 6th, 7th, 11th, 12th, and 13th. And on April 6th and 7th, from 8 p.m. until 6 a.m., Fort Erie bound traffic will be closed so that there can be girder erection. This is all part of the reconstruction of the highway, the rail overpass just to the north of Bowen Road. And on April 11th to 13th, so April 11th, 12th, and 13th, 8 p.m. until 6 a.m., the Toronto-bound or westbound traffic will be closed for the girder erection. There is on the ministry's website, there is a detour that's recommended. It would call for you to get off the QEW for coming into Fort Erie at Netherby, and then work your way down to Birdie Street, that cutoff on the highway. And then if you're heading out of Fort Erie, you'd want to get off there and head towards the QEW, get on Netherby. If you live in the north end of Fort Erie, you'd probably run up the Parkway. I don't know that you'd want to follow the route that they've got, But for those who are from Fort Erie and you're looking for a way to get back into town or out of town, those ramps will be available, but then the others will be closed, Gilmore and Bowen. I also wanted to mention that, let me get back on track here. There's a number of Easter activities that are going to be taking place for children in our community over the next little while. And the next Saturday, April the 9th, from 11 a.m. until 2 p.m., the Bridgeburg Business Improvement Association is going to hold a Jurassic Bunny Hop on Jarvis Street. There will be photos with the Easter Bunny, treats from businesses, there'll be a plasma racetrack, a Jurassic play zone, train rides, and live music. And I understand that, Councillor McDermott, if you're not one of these Jurassic dinosaurs, you plan to be there in any event. You might be as old as one, yes. On the following Saturday, April the 16th, the Crystal Beach Business Improvement Association is holding an Easter event at Bay Beach Park, and again, that's going to be from 11 until 2 a.m. They'll have a number of activities, I think including an Easter egg hunt. And then finally, on that motif, there is going to be a virtual Easter egg hunt conducted by the Mayor's Youth Advisory Committee. There will be some information posted shortly on the town's website that will advise students who are interested in linking into that, how they can go about doing that. It will be a virtual Easter egg hunt, and something that I think will be particularly interesting for those who are a little older than those who will be participating at Bridgeburg and Crystal Beach. And then finally, in 1992, a new business started in Fort Erie that is still going strong. And it's changed its name once along the way. So it's now known as Employment Professionals Canada. It has had singular ownership for virtually the entire 30 years. And this somewhat escaped me until I was talking to the owner of that business on Saturday morning, and they were in the middle of their 30th anniversary festivities, I guess. And so I want to congratulate Councillor Marina Butler, proprietor Marina Butler, the owner of Employment Professionals Canada, and all of the team that you've had over the years. It's been an exemplary community partner that has done a lot of work, not only on the profit side, but also a lot of nonprofit work. And you've been very generous to the residents of Fort Erie, the workers looking for work, and a lot of charities in the town of Fort Erie. So I'd like to present you with this certificate on behalf of the residents and the town of Fort Erie, congratulating you on 30 years of success with, I suppose, 30, 40 more years to go before you can retire. Congratulations. I gave Councillor Butler an opportunity to say something, but apparently she's got a short time on the pool as to how long this meeting will last tonight. So she doesn't want to prolong it. And Councillor Lubberts said that's not a request for you to prolong the meeting.
I'll be there.
You've never let me down. Okay, that's it for the announcements. There is an addendum. We have an additional delegation this evening, Darren Flagg, with respect to a decision made by the Land Committee, and he will be speaking under Corporate and Community Services, and that's item 10.1A. Okay, are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? Councillor Lubberts, and then Councillor Butler.
Yes, thank you very much, Mayor Redekop. I'm not going to declare the conflict, but I just need to know who the principal is on item C, Ontario Inc., in case there is a conflict.
This is the
Item
open
C,
house?
under open house.
Yeah, 5C. Mr. Hurlowich, would you know that?
Your worship, to the council, we don't have that information. I could email it to, well, I guess that'd be a little bit too late for,
Well, you can bring it forward, and if it, I mean, you need to give that to the councillors, and if it
Yes.
turns out that any of us do have a conflict, we can make that declaration at the next council meeting.
yeah.
Okay,
It's
thanks.
the notice of the open house, which is not tonight.
Yes, and perhaps going forward, it is helpful for us if we have an idea of who's behind those numbered corporations. Councillor Butler.
Still in shock over that presentation, so thank you again. I have a declaration with item number, overwhelmed. On Agenda 7.2, item title Consent Agenda 7.2 IS 09-2022, Road Resurfacing Award. The second dot, my business does business with Circle P Paving.
Okay, so that, so it's actually, Mr. Watts, did Circle P Paving get the small, they're doing the double surface treatment, that's true. But what about the patching program? Did they, so that would be the third. So, Madam Clerk, I believe that we can deal with the first recommendation in IS 09-2022 as part of the consent agenda, but we would have the second and third recommendations, which deal with the surface treatment for the resurfacing program and the patching program. We'll deal with those separately. Anything further, Councillor Butler? Any other declarations? No? Anyone else? Okay. So then, in terms of upcoming public meetings, we've got several. The first is a proposed official plan and zoning bylaw amendment relative to 7 Central Avenue and 100-1 Queen Street. That's Compass Heights. The meeting is scheduled for April the 11th, 2022 at 6 p.m. in the council chambers, and the information report on that will be available on our website on the previous Wednesday, which is April the 6th of this week. There's another proposed zoning bylaw amendment public meeting with respect to Rebstock Road, and that will take place Monday, April the 11th, 2022 at 6 p.m. Again, the information report will be available on April the 6th. Both of those meetings take place here in the council chamber. There's an open house, a proposed draft plan of subdivision with respect to Black Creek Road, and that is to be held on Thursday, April the 7th at 5 p.m. at the Black Creek Community Center in Stevensville. And finally, there's an open house with respect to a proposed zoning bylaw amendment, 3914 Alexander Road. And again, that will be Wednesday, April the 13th, 2022 at 5 p.m. here in the Town Hall atrium. We have a public meeting this evening with respect to DiPietro Street. The owner is a numbered corporation, 2655 321 Ontario, Inc. And the process is a member of staff, in this case, Daryl Vanderveen, will be providing us with some background information After council has asked any questions they have of him, we will ask the proponent or the proponent's agent if they wish to address us with respect to any aspect of the proposal. And thereafter, I will ask if there's anyone who wishes to speak in favor of the application or anyone who wishes to speak in opposition or ask questions of council with respect to the application. So, Mr. Vanderveen, good evening.
Yeah, good evening, Your Worship, members of council, members of the public in attendance, and anybody who may be watching this on our YouTube stream. I'm just going to commence the PowerPoint presentation. And everybody can hear me okay? Great. So, yeah, again, thanks. The purpose of this public meeting is to provide information regarding the proposed combined official plan and zoning bylaw amendment for 0-10546 DePietro Street. The purpose of this application is to permit development of 3 single detached dwellings on the subject property. The land use designation of the subject property is proposed to change from commercial to urban residential. The zoning is proposed to change from general commercial C2-115 zone to a site-specific residential 3R3 zone. The site-specific zoning will contain a provision to permit reduced lot frontage for one of the proposed new lots. Notification of the April 4th, 2022 public meeting was provided in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act by placing a notice in the March 10th, 2022 edition of the Fort Erie Post newspaper. In addition, all property owners within 120 meters were mailed a notice of complete application in public meeting on March 14th, 2022. The subject property is located in the Walden neighborhood of the town of Fort Erie on the corner of DePietro Street and Murdoch Avenue. It is about 200 meters north of Garrison Road. The following summarizes the land uses surrounding the subject property. To the north, Murdoch Avenue, a commercial use and vacant residential land. To the south, commercial uses. To the east, DePietro Street and single detached dwellings. To the west, a small laneway owned by the town, a former rail corridor owned by the town that functions as open space, and single detached dwellings. The subject property is currently vacant. The property was severed from the commercial lands to the south in 2021. The subject property is designated commercial in the town's official plan. An official plan amendment is required to change the land use designation to urban residential to permit development of residential uses. Single detached dwellings are a permitted land use under the urban residential land use designation. There are no natural heritage features on or in the vicinity of the subject property as identified on Schedule C or Schedule C1 of the town's official plan. The property is not identified as having archaeological potential in Schedule D of the town's official plan. The subject property is currently zoned General Commercial C2-115 zone in the town zoning bylaw. The zoning of the subject property is proposed to change to a site-specific residential 3R3 zone. The R3 zone permits single detached dwellings. A site-specific provision is required for reduced lot frontage for the northern corner lot. This is a survey sketch illustrating the proposed lot configuration of the 3 lots proposed for single detached dwellings. Again, a site-specific zoning provision is required to permit reduced lot frontage for the corner lot, shown as Part 1 on the sketch. The R3 zoning requires a minimum lot frontage of 15 meters for corner lots. Part 1 is proposing approximately 13.69 meters of lot frontage. This is looking west into the site from DePietro Street. As I mentioned earlier, it's currently vacant. This is looking south into the parcel from Murdoch Avenue. You can see the commercial operation to the south in the background. This is looking southeast into the property from the intersection of Murdoch Avenue and DePietro Street. And that concludes the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vanderveen. Do any members of council have any questions? Councillor Noyes.
Thank you, Mayor Redekop, and thank you for your presentation. I'm just wanting to, the slide that showed the 3 lots and the one with the shorter lot frontage.
Sure. Bear with me, it's been a while since I had to operate this computer.
It's okay. Yes, that one, thank you. It looks deceiving when I'm looking at it, that lot looks like it's more than what it is. Is that because, again, the town-owned property or something, because it's on the intersection?
Yeah, there's a lot of boulevards surrounding the subject property. The road is actually fairly narrow there, so there is a substantial amount of grass between the property line and the paved portion of the road.
Okay, thank you.
Any other members of council? Thank you very much, Mr. Vanderveen.
Thanks.
Now, if there's anyone from the owner or the agent for the owner that wishes to address council, please come forward.
Thank you, Your Worship. My name is Michael Sullivan. I'm with Land Pro Planning. We're the agents for the application.
Good evening.
Good evening. And Mr. Vanderveen did a great presentation. I'm here for any questions that council may have.
Any members of council have any questions? Councillor Lubberts.
Yes, thank you very much, Mayor Redekop. Just looking at the one of the slides that we had up earlier with the lots, it shows some dotted lines. I'm assuming those are the existing lots. And then everything seems to be shifted. What's going to happen to the excess? There's a little triangle.
Yeah, through the mayor to Councillor Lubberts, I believe the dashed lines were former lots, and the angled lots, as you saw, the angled lot lines are what's being proposed, and that will be addressed through a future application to the Committee of Adjustment.
So I'm just curious as to if there's excess property, where does that go? Does it stay with the owner? Or?
I'm sorry, I misunderstood. All the property that's there will be in three lots, is the plan, and it's a bit confusing on the survey sketch because it shows what's legally there and what has been legally there, so it's a bit confusing. Would you like me to show it to you? Take you through it, Mr.
Pardon me?
Would you like me to take you through it, Councillor? Just
Yeah. If I just.
Can I have it?
That was the same slide you had up for Councillor Noyes.
And if I may note, Mr. Mayor, or Your Worship, it's quite nice to be back in person again.
It is indeed. You look
Yeah,
bigger.
you're much bigger in person.
Yeah.
This is our presentation. There we go.
That one there.
So, Councillor Lubberts,
The bottom there, it shows the dotted line, and then there's that little wedge.
Oh, below the
The
three?
existing properties.
I believe that's going to be, Darrell, that's left with the existing property, the retained property, correct?
Yeah, did you want me to speak to that?
If we don't mind, just to be on the safe side.
Yeah, through Mayor Redekop to Councillor Lubberts. So there is a building on the Southlands that's still technically a commercial building, and the zoning requires a 4.5 meter setback. So we instructed the applicant to adjust the lines of the new property to kind of be angled to accommodate that 4.5 meter setback. So that's why it's on an angle, and there's that small triangle piece. That triangle piece is now part of the rest of the commercial property to the south. The former,
Dotted line would be, from there to the green line would become part of the commercial property to the south?
yes, that's actually already occurred.
Okay, all right. Okay, thanks.
Any other members of council have any other questions? It was an easy night, Mr. Sullivan.
I'm good. Thank you, sir.
You must have a early quit for the meeting as well then, in the pool. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone who wishes to address council in opposition to the application? There doesn't appear to be anyone. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in favor of the application or ask questions of the council? There being none, I'm going to declare this public meeting closed, and we're going to move on then to our consent agenda, and we'll be dealing with this later in the evening. So we need to have IS 09-2022 removed from the package to be dealt with separately. Is there anyone else that wishes any other reports removed from the package? If not, then can I have a mover? Councillor Dubanow is moving the amended consent agenda package. Are there any questions or comments? Councillor Noyes.
Thank you, Mayor Redekop. On PDS 16-2022, the extension of draft plan approval of Lupamping Phase 2. My question is in regards to Appendix, I think it's Appendix 5, number 3. It talks about rear yard or exterior yard for ground surface water and stuff to come down. I thought we stopped side yard drainage.
Okay, and which page are you on?
That's
Appendix 5.
page 5. I think it's page
Which condition is it you're referring to?
number 3.
Condition 3, so it's on page 11 of the package.
I thought we had stopped. We no longer allow side yard drainage.
Mr. Hurlovich, you're already there.
Yes. So, excuse me, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor. The condition is for rear yards and exterior side yards, so that exterior side yard would be towards a street and not towards an adjacent house. So that's the difference. It's not an interior side yard.
Councillor Noyes?
That's fine. Thank you for the explanation.
Any other questions? Mr. Hurlovich, maybe you can shed some clarity on this. The actual time for this plan of subdivision to proceed was last year, February of 2021. It's been extended by staff, which has the authority to do that on a temporary basis. That's a year, more than a year. And I understood that we had indicated that we would like to be informed or have a bit tighter rein on this. There may have been some strange circumstances. I noticed that somebody in the owner group had passed away. I don't know when that was, and I don't know how critical that was, but it does appear that our staff reached out to the owner's agent a number of times to get response with respect to the issue about the termination of the approval period. Do you have any additional information on that?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't. You know, typically we do reach out, and it maybe the contact, was not instantly made, and we kept working with them. Eventually, they did contact our office.
Yeah, I think it's prudent for the municipality to reach out. I think we support that. However, I think the report said several times, and that's a little concerning to me. So going forward, would you be able to ensure that the council at least is aware of these temporary extensions so that we've got a handle on what's being temporarily extended by staff and how far we're getting off of the timelines?
Yes, I'll make sure that that is done.
Great, thank you very much. Are there any other questions? If not, I'm going to call the question. Is that an early vote or is that a question, Councillor Lubberts? Is that a question or an early vote?
Just a quick question.
Yep, go ahead.
Thank you very much. On the conditions on 7
Same
talks
report?
about the subdivision grade.
Yep.
And we've run into some problems in the past where developers have put their grade plan together, gets approved by council, but the neighboring owners run into trouble with drainage. And I'm just wondering if somehow we might not be able to do it here, but in the future, if we not only put these conditions in for the subdivision itself, but for the neighboring properties so that they're not affected either.
So, So I think the gist of what you're saying is that you want to make sure that the drainage plan not only does not adversely affect new construction within the subdivision, but any existing construction outside the
Yeah, because if you
subdivision?
read it, it said, both existing and proposed grades in the means whereby major storm flows will be accommodated across the site. So they accommodate the site of the subdivision, but sometimes it's not so accommodating for the neighboring property owners.
All right, so you're asking staff basically to consider the wording of that condition in the future?
Yeah, well, I don't know if they can do it with this one here, but in the future, we need to think of that, because I don't know how many times I get calls from people saying, well, you know, they built next to me and they follow the grade plan, but you come over and you look and there's a big drop in their property, the new property is higher than the existing property.
Mr. Hurlovich?
Right. Excuse me, through your worship, the engineer for the developer will be required to submit his master grading plan, so that if there's, basically it's a one-sided subdivision on a street, so that the frontage should be flowing towards that street, and any rear yard drainage should go towards a swale, so the town would need to ensure that that swale is designed such that it would not allow the water to continue further north onto the adjacent lands. So it will be a safety check at the time that those master grading plans come in.
Councillor Lubberts?
Yeah, I understand that, but what I'm reading here is they're responsible for the drainage of the site. And so they show how they're gonna drain the site,
Correct.
but if there's problems with the budding property owners or owners in the neighborhood, then the owners in the neighborhood, they're kind of left out on their own. And I understand what you're saying, but I don't see where the engineer is going to be taking into consideration the neighboring property owners. I don't read it here. How do you interpret that they're taking care of the neighbors as well? And if there's a problem, the neighbors can go to the developer and have it fixed.
Do we not have a policy, Mr. Hurlovich, that says that new construction cannot detrimentally affect existing construction?
We do have that policy, and it's part of the Building Code Act as well. You know, we could adjust this wording to say major storm flows will be accommodated away from adjacent properties across the site, something like that.
Yeah, the site and the neighboring property owners as well, or something like that.
So Councillor Lubberts, as part of the recommendation to extend draft plan approval, you could theoretically move an amendment to this condition to put in.
Yeah,
wording-
can we
the wording that-
can we do that here?
the
I didn't
wording-
know if we would do it tonight or not, but
Well, I believe that you can, and Mr. Hurlovich has given you a suggestion as to what could be added to that condition. So, two questions, Mr. Hurlovich. Number one, we can amend the conditions because,
Yes,
Staff
that's
can
within
recommend
council's
that, and
purview.
and in fact, we're going to be amending regional conditions. So if you want to move that,
yeah, I'll make I'll move that we make the amendment.
okay. And the amendment, again, Mr. Hurlovich, would be that after the words accommodated, or after the word accommodated, would be the words,
Yes, well, I've kind of rewritten that so that major storm flows will be accommodated across the site and away from adjacent lands to be submitted to the town of Fort Erie.
okay, that's
That
your
is the
motion.
plans.
Yeah, that would work, right? Would that work with you?
Mr. Hurlovich, is
Yes.
that agreeable to you?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. We don't need a seconder in committee. Any questions or comments with respect to the amendment? All those in favor of amending that condition? Okay. So is there any other further questions or comments with respect to any of the reports within the consent agenda? If not, then the consent agenda as amended, all those in favor? None opposed, that is carried. That takes us into IS 09-2022. And we're going to deal with that in three parts. We'll deal with, I need to have it put on the floor, I guess. Can I have a mover to put that on the floor? Councillor Lubberts. We're going to deal with it in three parts. The first one, which deals with the hot mix asphalt contract, and the second two, which deal with the surface treatment contract and the patching contract. Or wait a minute, that's, no, the third recommendation, that amends the budget. So that'll have to be dealt with separately as well. So Councillor Butler has, would have a conflict with respect to 2 and 3, but not 1. Okay, so that report is on the floor. Are there any questions or comments?
For the first that?
For the first, that. Yeah. So I've just got one question relative to Kingston Road goes as far as Brantford, and then I believe I think it's hot mix, but it doesn't go past Brantford. And I thought there was some problems with the road east of Brantford. Mr. Walsh, would you?
Mr. Mayor, Kingston east of Brantford is actually a gravel road.
Okay, and is, just give me a second. That's okay, it's in the next contract, it's in the surface treatment contract. Yeah. The clerk is losing this bet. Okay, if there are no other questions on that, all those in favor of the first recommendation in report IS 09-2022, none opposed, that is carried. So then the second has to do with the surface treatment. Now's your opportunity, Mr. Walsh. You said it's gravel past to the east of Brantford, Kingston Road. So we're just going to leave it as gravel?
That's correct.
Why?
We don't,
Need to go to the microphone, sorry.
Mr. Mayor, it's a practice right now that we don't upgrade roads from what they are until we get our entire network in a state where we can start to afford to upgrade roads. Right now, we're still concentrating on bringing the existing surfaces into a condition that's suitable to what they should be.
My recollection is there are houses east of Brantford.
There are.
Okay, I have another question. Burley Road, between Dominion and Thunder Bay Road. Is that, it's not on the list here. Perhaps you could provide us with an indication of when that might be worked on?
If I recall correctly, it is in next year's
2023.
program. I'll put an asterisk beside that. We are in our year where we reevaluate every road, so the order may change a little bit, but I don't think it does.
Right, okay. Thank you very much, sir. Okay, if there are no other questions on the surface treatment component, all those in favor? None opposed, that is carried. And then the final recommendation relates to the amendment to the budget, an additional $85,000. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? None opposed, that is carried. That takes us to Planning and Development Services, Councillor Dubanow.
Yes, Your Worship. Just bear with me here. Planning and Development Services is now in session for the evening. We have no presentations or delegations this evening, and Surprisingly, there's only one report on the agenda this evening. It's PDS 15-2022. That's a proposed combined official plan and zoning bylaw amendment for 0-10546 DePetro Street. I'm just wondering if I get a mover for that, Your Worship. That report is on the floor for any questions or comments from council. Your Worship.
So the only comment I have is that when the grade plan is done for this property, I hope that the discussion that we've had the last couple of weeks will be taken into account by staff in terms of grade elevations, so that we're not in a situation where we've got something that's way up out of the ground and then we've got drainage problems. Other than that, I thought it was an excellent report, and I've advised Mr. Vanderveen that.
Thank you, Your Worship, and I'm sure staff there, I see them writing some stuff down, so I think they've got your comments there with respect to that. Any other members of council, questions or comments regarding the report? You guys are making it easy for me tonight. I'll call the question then. All those in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. So we'll move then into new business or inquiries this evening. Any members of council? Councillor Noyes.
Thank you, Councillor Dubanow. My question is about the backstop at Douglas Park off a river trail. I understand that it still hasn't been RFP'd, so we still don't have it tendered. And I think the goal is to have it tendered, the tenders come back hopefully by the end of May, or that they're going to be able to proceed in the tender. That part of the tender is to say that the work should be started by the end of May and then hopefully completed in June. I'm just going to bring this up because I know that this was something I mentioned actually last summer, that I was concerned once the backstop was removed that it wasn't going to happen very quickly. And I was encouraged to wait until December, until the budget time, that it would be dealt with then, which it was, and was put in the budget, and that once the capital budget was approved, then the tenders could go forth and we would have it ready to install. Well, that didn't happen either, and I do understand this has been 2 years of COVID and a lot of...
So on a point of order, Chair.
Yeah, Your Worship.
Obviously, Councillor Noyes didn't receive the email that I sent to her at 4:17 p.m. Tried to call and wasn't able to get through, so I sent an email, but this is in response to your issue, if I might.
Sure.
So basically, following a conversation earlier with Councillor Noyes, I did contact Ms. Hanson, who has been handling this. Her response to me was, further to your voicemail, I'm intending to put out a tender for the AC Douglas Park and Ott Road Park backstop and fencing replacement in the next week. My intent is to get a report to council on May 16th for award of contract, that the work start by the end of May and be completed by mid-June. Unfortunately, without a senior community planner, I've spent a good portion of the last few months dealing with heritage, regional official plan, and other such matters, having a number of park projects behind schedule. So her expectation is that the backstop will be done sometime in the early to mid part of June this year.
And thank you for that explanation, and I do understand that the work pressures that everyone's under, but again, that's why I brought it up in September. I was anticipating this problem. I'm hoping that we are going to be able to find suppliers in that short time frame, because this is the busy season for playgrounds and installation. I'm going to keep my fingers crossed, but and hope that we do get it this June. So I did want to mention that. Thank you.
Yeah, Your Worship, go right ahead.
Yeah, I don't want the impression left that staff has not tried to be as responsive as possible to this. And Ms. Hanson in particular has taken on significant burden in view of the fact that we've had a number of staff who have moved on. And I gave her the good news this afternoon, which is that I'm working on expanding the hours of the day from 24 to 26 so that she'll have 2 more hours each day to work. She was both shocked and amazed that I could even have the power to approach that type of thing. So this is something that, quite correctly, Councillor Noyes has brought up, and it's not something that is being lost. It's just a matter of how much work can one person do. The good news is we're getting additional staff, which will help us to deal with that.
No, and I appreciate those comments, Your Worship, because we also did have an opportunity to discuss this briefly at the subcommittee meeting that we just recently had. And there are actually several parks that, including Douglas Park, right, in Ward 2, that have kind of been, I don't want to say put on the wayside, but Ms. Hanson has been, she's been a jack of all trades in planning right now with all the work she's been doing. So I appreciate where she's coming from, working as hard as she can to keep it all on schedule. And I certainly do understand where Councillor Noyes is coming from, especially the parks. Those are important, important infrastructure in our community, especially for families. So I'm glad we had this opportunity to discuss it this evening. Was that it, Councillor Noyes? Did you have any? Okay, thank you. Any other members of council, any new business or inquiries they want to bring up this evening? All right. I'll go on to the business status report, and I'll just quickly comment that it was a lot shorter than some of them that we've seen previously. Oh, Councillor Noyes, did you have your hand? I thought you raised your hand there for a second. It's all good. Any comments, questions about the business status report? Well, in that case, you made it very easy for me this evening, Council. I gratefully hand the chair back to His Worship.
Thank you very much, Councillor Dubanow. That takes us to infrastructure services, and is that you, Councillor Lubberts? Councillor Noyes? Councillor Noyes.
Thank you, Mayor Redekop. Infrastructure Services is now in session. There are no presentations and delegations. That brings us to report number IS-10-2022, Initiative to Expedite Development Services Servicing Process. Can I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor McDermott. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, I am going to ask Mr. Walsh if he would like to perhaps expand on this. He and I have had a discussion earlier just exactly what it would look like and some examples on when this would come into play.
Anywhere from 0 to several of these types of situations a year. I'll give an example. The mayor's familiar with this. There is a house to be built at the end of Royal York Road. The servicing extension that's needed, it's out of the urban service area, is only a road extension. Unfortunately, this housing build has been back and forth between staff and the owner for a number of reasons on both sides. We're getting near the end. It's our thought on this. It's a perfect example where the owner would be quite upset if there was a further 6 to 8 week delay in the process while we get our paperwork, i.e. red tape, in order to facilitate the final throes of the development. It's a very minor road extension. It should be of concern to the council, but not we feel great enough to bring in front of you.
Thank you for that explanation.
Okay.
Any questions for the director? Seeing none, thank you. That, so all those in favor of the report? The report carries, thank you. That brings us to new business inquiries. Anyone have new business inquiries? Mayor Redekop?
Yeah, I just have a question about now that the snow has melted and we're getting around the community, there seems to be garbage in a lot of places. I would presume that one of the options for residents is to call the region, which is responsible for waste collection and particularly dumping, because some of it's clear dumping when it's in bags. But are there any other avenues for residents, or is there any program that we have as a municipality that would address that type of thing? Or should we be looking at some type of adopt a road program, or all of the above?
Mr. Walsh?
Certainly all of the above is the probably the correct answer. The region does have their illegal dumping hotline. It's both web and phone enabled, where you can phone in reports. If they find something, they can throw fines at the offender. The town used to, pre-COVID, support neighborhood organizations if they were to clean a street or a park or such. Give us a call, let us know when and where the refuse bags will be placed. We'll pick them up and dispose of them from there. And that's been very successful in the past.
So if I might, Madam Chair, so any resident or group in the community that's interested in doing that should contact Infrastructure Services?
Just call 871-1600, the front desk. They'll take care of the rest.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor, I'm just to add to that, when I was a Lion, a while ago, the Lions would coordinate with the Cubs and the Scouts and some other youth groups to do it, but I will say that it kind of came to an end when the ticks became very dangerous and stuff like that they didn't feel it was good for the kids to be out there. So that kind of, unfortunately, kind of ended the program. I know for our Lions Club, we didn't want to put the children going into the ditches and picking things up because of the ticks.
Yep, I hear that. Still, if you're properly dressed, I guess it's, but yeah, you don't want to be exposing children. Fair enough. Thank you, Mr. Walsh.
And I will say the Lions enjoyed it as much as the kids did. And the town was wonderful in supporting them. I think we got the vests and we got the bags and we got all kinds of things from the town. But it did end, unfortunately. Okay, any other new business inquiries? Seeing none, that brings us to the business status report. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, Infrastructure Services is now closed, so I hand the chair back to you, Mayor Redekop.
Thank you very much, Councillor Noyes, and that takes us to Corporate and Community Services. Councillor McDermott.
Thank you, Your Worship. Corporate Community Services is now in session. We have one delegation tonight, Darren Flagg from 1102 Benner Avenue, to speak to a land matters report. Mr. Flagg?
Thank you, Councillor McDermott, Your Worship. I appreciate the opportunity to address you this evening in relationship to my opposition to the Land Committee decision. The property that I'm speaking of is 1102 Benner Avenue. I purchased the property 3 years ago, and 2 years ago tried to entertain the option of purchasing the current road allowance that services that property. Of course, with COVID and so forth, very difficult at that time to have that dealt with, and we bring ourselves to this point where staff has been able to address it. For the last 60 years or so, that property has sat in that position and utilized a dead-end road allowance that dead ends at the property line as access to that property. I approached staff with the opportunity to purchase that road allowance, and there was discussion about a land swap, which would see the town receive a portion of property in exchange for that road allowance, which is envisioned as a pathway that would connect the Benner Road area to the Garrison Road School. A number of different emails went back and forth over the course of about 6 months. It was envisioned that the pathway could be at the furthest south side of the property that I own, which would then connect it to 1156 Garrison and through to the school from there. January 26th, I received an email indicating that that it was understood that that was agreeable with the town, and subsequently I allowed that to go to committee with the hope and the understanding that that was going to be supported by staff. I was a bit surprised to see that staff, in fact, did not support that that recommendation. They gave a couple of reasons why that I would like to address. The first was that the Spears High Point secondary plan is designed to conserve existing areas. You will see that most of the area surrounding that is environmental conservation area and core natural heritage system. The region has supported the concept of that being transferred into our single occupancy and ownership. It would seem to meet the existing desires of the High Point secondary plan because it wouldn't open that road allowance. If you were trying to open that road allowance, you would be taking property from me and also tearing down a current building that is there. The reestablishment of the pathway can be brought south by 14 meters. It would then act as a buffer from 1156 Garrison in all of the environmental conservation protocols. Your Worship, I'm unfamiliar with the options that Council has. I do have some handouts here that will make my discussion maybe a little more clear because I understand that what you have may be a bit different, I guess, than what I have, but certainly provide that to you. And I'm unfamiliar with what options you have with respect to the Land Committee's decision. While I would hope that you would reject outright their proposal that this not go through, I would hope that at a minimum you would encourage staff to have a second look at this, not to close the door on the discussion of a mutually beneficial option that would exist. It would eliminate the cumbersome need for us to get into encroachments on both the driveway side and the building side, and ultimately would allow the town to receive a portion of land which it envisions as a pathway, which currently it doesn't have. Thank you.
Are there any comments or questions? Councillor Dubanow and then Councillor Butler.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and through you to Mr. Flagg, thank you for your presentation this evening. Just one quick question. You had mentioned you had some material, and certainly we've got your letter here. I've had the opportunity to read it myself. Have you provided this material to staff as well, leading up to this meeting tonight?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Flagg.
Councillor Butler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for your presentation, Mr. Flagg. I just have a couple of questions because I'm a little unclear with respect to the land swap portion. Digitally, the diagram that the town shows us the area that is in question that the town owns. But if there was a land swap, where would that actually take place on your diagram? I'm not quite sure where it would.
Do you have Appendix 2 to LC 05200? Yep, perfect. So right now you'll see that green pathway. That green pathway goes through my current property. If that was moved down one lot, it would then take the top portion of 1110 and could go straight across to and join up with the 1138 Garrison. In the environmental overlay, that offers a buffer between the medium density home and the environmentally sensitive area. And it would run right along the 11109 is now combined with 1156 Garrison under single ownership, and that would run right along their lot line.
Thank you. When you say that just one last final question, Mr. Chair, just for clarification, but when you say that the town's land road allowance kind of dead ends and then really doesn't extend any further, it's with your clearance in the back of your home, right? And it just kind of paths away to where that shed is or the garage is?
Right, and then I own 40 feet behind that shed and garage.
Okay, and so when you're saying that, I guess two questions. When you're saying that it may be expropriated, is that the parcel of land that you're referring to that would be?
Right, if they were going to continue that to service any type of building. Behind that, that would have to be expropriated. And currently, there is no documents that I've been able to find that shows that that road allowance does anything other than end right at my property line there. And the current owners of the adjacent property to the east do own right-of-way onto Benner. So if there was a desire for them to join to Benner Avenue, they do have property that would allow them to do that.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Flagg, and thank you for the material that you've provided. So I believe what you're driving at is you would like to keep as much of your land contiguous without being broken up by the path.
That would be the most prudent aspect, yes.
Right. And so of the material that you provided to us, there is a geopedia.
Correct. I wasn't aware that you received all of that. Thank you. So on the Geopedia one, you'll see a dark, kind of two lines. I wasn't able to color it in green. But if the land swap went to that line, that the bottom of that black line is the current lot line that I own, and the top of that black line would be the same as the current conceptual pathway is, and it would be due south 14.9 meters from the current concept.
So I'm imagining that the owner of the property that fronts on Garrison Road, according to this revised path route, would have some concern because it impinges on its ability to develop the developable portion of their land. How about would you be agreeable to something whereby the path eventually diverts down to the line on your parcel, but doesn't necessarily go straight across? You don't really care, do you, as long as your property is protected on the one hand, the town gets its pathway on the other, and whoever wants to develop adjacent land, they're...
Yeah, the adjacent land, without any disrespect to the adjacent landowners, is not my concern.
Yeah, I get that. Okay, so then really what I think you stated it quite clearly. You'd like the land committee and the planning department to take a further look at how this can be reconfigured so that we can accomplish your long-term objective, which is to protect your garage and assist the municipality to create a long-term solution for...
I think it's a mutually beneficial thing. It's not just singular on this side.
Yep, and I don't disagree. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Noyes.
I think my question's been answered, thank you.
Councillor Lewis.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And Mr. Flagg, thank you very much. I'm just looking at version 2.1.
Yes.
And I'm assuming that these dark black lines just below 011110, that's what you're proposing to swap?
Correct.
And I think I read in your presentation that you sent us that Florence Drive is narrow to begin with, right?
I believe that the road allowance is fairly substantial, but the current existing is a single lane.
Yeah, how wide is that?
The current existing,
Yeah, the current one.
I would guess 14 feet. That would just be a,
So so this is just basically a pathway.
the pathway is a conceptual desire from the town that would link Benner Avenue to the school. So that's the current green
Okay,
line is just conceptual.
and that's what, I guess that's what the town wants to maintain it as. They don't want to make it a road?
It's not a path now. It's not there. It's in a future plan. So there is no there's no pathway there. That's completely environmental area. You would be hard pressed to walk through that right now.
Yeah. No, but that's, you're proposing to swap that, right? And then create that path down here, right?
I'm proposing that I swap the current Florence Street dead-end road allowance for a piece of property that can become the conceptual pathway.
And who owns this neighborhood development property in 1156? Who owns that?
I'm unaware. I was told that property was sold within the last couple of months.
So the town would have to make arrangements with the people that own 1156 as well, right?
Right. Currently, the town does not own any of this land that goes across that concept.
Yeah, right. Yeah, they just own the pathway that's existing.
No, they don't own the pathway. The pathway is currently on my land. They own the road allowance, which is above in the, if you look at Appendix 2, you can see the green line that runs through 11111. And that is a lot that I currently own, 11111. Just above 11111 is a space, and that is the road allowance.
That is the road line.
That is the road allowance. So my preference would be if the town wants to do a land swap, for us to take the road allowance and then move the concepted pathway instead of through 11111 to 11110. And that would allow me a continual plot of land there, rather than it being bifurcated by the pathway.
And that is what you so far were led to believe was going to happen?
That was the discussion that I had with town that I thought they were going to support, or with staff, sorry, that I thought they were going to support.
Okay, and then in your report or in your delegation report, you said something about real estate came along, somebody from real estate? What happened there?
This was, because this has been 2 years in the making, that property was sold, and I was given to understand through a message received that the vision of the town is to have these lands combined. And
What property was sold?
give me one moment, and so if you look at the pathway, so if 11109, so that is kind of an odd L shape,
Yeah,
right? So that has been sold, and that has merged with 1156.
okay.
So the message received was that it would be advantageous to the town in their planning, that they envision all of that land being merged together. And it was, I was provided information as to who sold that land, and if I was interested in selling the land, which I'm not, I could contact that individual.
And so I guess since real estate got involved, that's when everything changed from what you understood was going to happen?
I would be taking a broad step, but making that statement. The timing.
I can make that statement.
You can make it. Yeah, that's fair.
That's
Councillor
what I'm
Lubberts.
gathering here. I'm trying to piece this all together. Well, I think maybe we'll have to talk with staff, find out what happened. No, that's fine.
No further questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
So we'll move to new business inquiries.
No,
What? Oh,
report.
trying to
forget
get
the
ahead
report.
of that.
I'm guessing that you've got 710 on
Sorry.
the pool.
So I'm a loser tonight.
I'll move the report.
Okay. All in favor?
No, we have,
Well, you now you want to speak to it.
now we got discussion. Yeah. So I'd like to move that we defer, that we refer back to the Land Committee recommendation number 2 for further discussion between planning staff and, I guess further discussion with planning staff and maybe even further dialogue with the property owners.
I think that's good. Any comments or questions? Councillor Noyes?
Is this to the amendment? No, I have
Yeah,
more
to the-
questions on the report.
There's an amendment, yeah.
Okay, no, I have no questions on the amendment.
All in favor of the amendment? Carried. Do we have one more item, Your Worship? Councillor Noyes?
No, I'm good.
Thank you, Councillor McDermott. I have a question on the Land Committee minutes, also in regards to the Willow Road. Again, it's a situation where I don't think the farmer feels that the Land Committee understood the situation because it has nothing to do with the shed. In this situation, he owns 100 acres plus or minus, I guess, and the road allowance that's now closed up by an individual is his access to his land. And being a farmer, he can't wait forever to be able to do it. A little bit of history from what I understand is that I guess there was some drainage work done in that area, and in the process of the drainage work, a large ditch, swale, whatever you want to call it, was put in to drain the land for all the right reasons. But before he could come from the other direction, so to speak, and but he can't do that anymore. He can't, like he says, I'm not going to bring my $200,000 combine through that swale or through that ditch or whatever, because it'll wreck it. But the other thing is, I guess he's used this over the years on and off as he needed to, but the owners changed hands for where this road allowance goes through, and the newest owner thinks he owns the land through squatters' rights or something. He has not only put up a fence, he has now brought armor stone, and I have pictures of it and stuff that was sent. And I don't think that would follow the encroachment policy at all that we have. And again, him being a farmer, he needs to have access to his property. And the recommendation in the Land Committee is that they're going to work on the encroachment policy in general. And then before they make a determination, well, to me, this is pretty black and white. You put up a fence across a road allowance, and you put up armor rock to prevent anybody from accessing it. I think, whether we have a complete encroachment policy, this does not fall in line. And the fact that he has used this in the past, he hopes he's not going to have to wait until the policy is all determined. He's hoping that there can be a decision done sooner than that, and that the person who's closing the road allowance complies and opens the road allowance. So I guess those are my comments. I don't know if anybody else wants to comment on it. I guess I'll do the same thing that the mayor did for the other one, is that we need to refer this back to the Land Committee for a decision sooner than, until the entire encroachment policy is dealt with. And that it be dealt with as soon as possible, and also perhaps staff go and look at the site to see exactly what the situation is. Thank you.
Your Worship?
Yeah, I maybe we can ask the CAO or the Director of Planning. My recollection is that there wasn't much mention made of a fence. It was mostly a shed. It was located on the road allowance. Number 1 and number 2, we weren't aware that this was the only access point now for the farmer to get to his field. So that would certainly be information that the land committee would need to look at, but maybe my recollection isn't as clear as Mr. Jansen's. Maybe he remembered something further.
Mr. Jansen?
Through you, Chair to Mayor. No, I think you're quite right. That's my recollection as well. And it is something, especially if there's other indications of the stone, that town staff can take a look at that.
Yeah, so I did, Councillor Noyes was good enough to forward some photographs that had been passed on to her by the person complaining of the obstruction. I did provide that to staff, and I think it would be appropriate for this to be referred back to Land Committee for further discussion, and as she has suggested, that maybe somebody from staff go out and take a look and see what's actually there.
Councillor Lubberts?
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Just to follow up on Councillor Noyes' inquiry, I would hope that our staff, although Land Committee has requested that we take a look at our encroachment policies, when it comes to a road allowance and blocking a road allowance, I would assume if it's a road allowance, it's a town-owned road allowance. And I would think that I would request staff to contact who's ever blocking the road allowance to remove their barriers. And then when the Land Committee or staff reviews the encroachment policies, then we can deal with it then. But I don't know that I would wait for them to remove the armor rock. If they're blocking a road allowance, remove your barricades. It's not your road allowance. And then the encroachment part, whatever's encroaching on the property, we can review. And then they can recommend some kind of encroachment agreement if they need to. But the barricades, I would, if I have to make a motion to have them removed immediately, then I'll make that motion.
Councillor Noyes?
I hope Councillor Lubberts does, but just want to clarify, he can get to half of his field. He can't get to all of his field since the drainage thing went in. And just another, it's kind of a bit of history. There was always kind of like a gentleman's agreement, even though it was a road allowance. It was always fenced, but it was a fence or a gate that could be opened and closed. The guy on the other end, the same thing. He has cows in the field. The unopened road allowance runs through, a fair bit of farming property, and it's unopened, so the farmers can't kind of fence in the entire road allowance, like fence around the road allowance. But what they've done in the past is that there's a gate, and if you need to go through, you open the gate, you drive your tractor through, and you close the gate so the cows don't get out. I mean, I'm not trying to be funny here, but that's basically the situation. And now with the new owner, he has a different opinion, and he has now made it very difficult for what's happened in the past to happen in the future. And there's no problem with the shed, from what I understand. So if the farmer says, as long as I can get my tractor through, I'm happy. Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to have a motion to give this back to Land Matters for some more examination. Is that good with you?
That's fine, as long as it happens quickly. I don't think that necessarily precludes Councillor Lubberts' suggestion that we have the owner remove the person who's put up the armored rock and the solid. It's not a solid fence, but it's like 2x4s with. It's not openable. Let's just put it. There's no gate. Be asked to do it. And I don't think anybody has a problem with the owner, who's once he removes his armor thing, to put a gate in, but at least something that still will allow the farmer to get in and out.
Your Worship, you go to these Land Matters meetings. Can we add Councillor Lubberts' concern to that?
Well, I think the difficulty is that now we're going on the photographs. We haven't had dialogue with the property owner. I mean, this is kind of an arbitrary matter. We have had a complaint from someone. My concern is that we're being dragged into property owner disputes, some of which are warranted, some of which aren't. And so we're arguing over things like trees on road allowances. And I So I think that it's best to refer this back to the Land Committee, bearing in mind that there's some urgency in view of the fact that we're getting into planting season and we're not there yet. But this can't dally. In the meantime, staff can go out and take a good look at what is there so that the Land Committee can have a good understanding of what is there. If it's necessary to move up the schedule of the next Land Committee meeting, we can do that so that we can at least deal with this. So that would be my suggestion rather than move forward and start removing things that, I mean, we have to make sure that they're on the road allowance. You can't acquire possessory rights on road allowance, so it doesn't matter how long something might have been there. But I think the more prudent course is to refer this back to Land Committee now that we've got some additional information, take it from there.
Councillor Noyes?
And I don't necessarily agree or disagree with the mayor, but the positive way. And I think the farmer would be willing to wait as long as he's not having to wait till the entire policy is worked out or whatever. But is there not something in our bylaw that says, like, I mean, this is, you can't put armor rock and a fence across a road allowance. If the bylaw officer goes there, whoever goes there and says, yeah, this is not, you can see the gate on one, you know, he can see what's going on, can say, okay, you have to remove this. You know, like, would that not be allowable if when the staff go and see it and the bylaw officer says, no, this isn't, can't do this? Or do we have to wait for a Land Committee meeting?
CAO can
Mr.
wait.
Jansen?
Now the questions are getting too tough.
Councillor, I've already dropped an email to our road staff. They'll go out and take a look at it ASAP. It's my thoughts, if the armor stone is blocking the road allowance, we'll remove that and put it to the side immediately. We're not going to take it away. But you can't just go block road allowances. We're running into this more and more throughout the town. So it is an issue. As for the rest of the issue, we can talk about that later in Land Committee.
Thank you. So we'll vote on the amendment?
George?
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, Councillor Lubberts.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Just to follow up on the road allowance itself, and Councillor Noyes mentioned that the previous owner and I guess the farmer had a mutual agreement. There was a gate across the road allowance, and that they would just open the gate, go in, close the gate when they were done. And that's where my problem lies, Mr. Chair. I spent a lot of time arguing over road allowances, and 10 years ago when we were fighting over Bay Beach, and that was one of the biggest contentions that Mr. Rebstock brought forward, was the fact he had a gate. And in order for anybody to go through that gate, which was on a road allowance, you had to get permission from Mr. Rebstock. And that caused all kinds of problems. And I know I had a farmer, he requested that we put a gate on Point Amino Road to stop the kids from four-wheeling in and out of there and digging up the road and making it difficult for him to get his farm equipment back and forth. I told him I couldn't do that because once you put that gate there, you're looking for trouble. So if there's a gate there, I'm not here. I can't agree with that. I can't support having a gate there. I understand property owners, you know, they got a mutual agreement, but if that gate is there for the town, and then you got permission from the town to get in and out of that gate, that's a different story. But I don't want no gate. I don't want no armor rock on our road allowances, and because we're just looking for trouble in the future. And now you can see it. You had a mutual agreement with two property owners. A new property owner comes in. They got a different idea of how things work. And so I agree with Mr. Walsh to go down there and take a look. And if the armor rock is on our road, then it should be removed. And let's avoid the problems before they get too far.
Okay, then we'll vote on the amended. All in favor? That's carried. Yeah. So if there's nothing else to add to these minutes, there's more? Okay. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. On page 7 of the minutes, I guess it's on my iPad, it's page 10 of 24, Graber Avenue. I spoke with our CAO earlier today, and it says here that it wasn't clear as the ownership of Graber Road and the properties that we had the lawyer look at. And I'm pretty sure my recollection was that it was still in the ownership of the original developer of these subdivisions. And Mr. Jansen's going to send out a media release, I guess, or something, a notice to the public about it. And I just want to make sure that we do know who owns it, but who has all the rights to it is a different story.
Any question to Mr. Jansen?
No, I just want to verify that Mr. Jansen is going to make sure that we do know who the owner is.
Your Worship?
So the problem is that Jacob Claus did own the land, and he died in 1919. We don't know who the current owner is because we don't know what the chain of title would have been. If he had a will, and the person who received the property had a will, and the next person had a will, and the next person had a will, we can probably figure that out. But we don't know if they all had wills because we don't know who all the beneficiaries or heirs were. And so that's the type of legal work and background work and research that would have to be done. So we know that it's somebody who's obtained title through Jacob Claus's line of heirs and beneficiaries. We don't know who exactly that could be, and in fact, it could be a number of people. What we do know is that no one person who owns a lot along the road or Crystal Beach Drive owns the access point. That we know. But we do know that everybody that owns property on Crystal Beach Drive in 2 parts, I think it's 3 parts, actually has some rights to a waterfront parcel called a beach road. That's what we know. That's what's in the legal opinion, and that's, so the best that we can say is that A, the town does not own it, B, there is an owner in the line of title from Jacob Claus, 3, there's no particular owner along the waterfront right now that would have the right to block the access point at Graver Road. That's what we know.
Yes, thank you very much, Mayor Redekop, and maybe I should have worded it a little different. We don't know the individual, but we do know that it's an heir of Jacob Claus would own the property, and it's not a piece of property that's out in limbo. It's owned by an heir, and we got to find out who that heir is.
Yeah, well, with respect, we don't need to know that. We don't need to know who owns every piece of property in the town of Fort Erie, and I don't think that the municipality should be spending thousands of dollars to figure out who owns that road allowance that runs to the lake. We don't own it. We know that. So why would we spend a lot of money to determine who does own it? That
I'm
would
not
be my
asking to
concern.
spend any money to find out who owns it.
Well, if you're asking for the town of Fort Erie to ascertain who owns,
No, I'm just saying that our legal opinion from the lawyer did state that, in her opinion, it was still owned by an heir of Jacob Claus.
right, but we don't need to,
And I'm not saying that, I'm just saying, we don't need to know who the individual is, but we can't say we don't know who owns it, because we know that it's an heir
it's somebody.
to
yes.
Jacob Claus.
Somebody,
Somebody
yeah.
owns it,
Yeah,
and it's up to someone to find out who owns it,
we're in
who
agreement
that
there.
individual is.
We're in agreement
And
there.
we're past 7:10. I'm sorry.
What is, I was just wondering what your time is in the pool.
You know I went late.
Anything further, Councillor Lubberts?
No, that's fine. I think that's it for the minutes.
So then I guess we're ready to vote on the amended. Oh. Councillor Noyes?
Thank you, Councilor McDermott. Actually, I have a question on regards to the Graver Avenue. I'm hearing how it was clarified. So my understanding is that the people who blocked it in the past really don't have the right to block it. So my question is, if they don't agree with the decision of the land committee or the town's position in our legal opinion, and they go to block it, what would the next step look like?
Mr. Jansen?
Through you, Chair. We are planning to send something out to share this, and this is good discussion for context of that. But ultimately, I think a court order would be needed to confirm that someone does own it to require or allow them to put up a structure or a fence like that. So I think in that instance, I believe previously the town, or somehow it was removed, and I think the expectation is that it would be removed again.
Thank you, Mr. Jansen. That's what I was hoping to hear. Thank you.
Worship?
Yeah, I just want to make sure that this isn't getting spun out of control, because the town would have no authority to remove any blockage. But any other property owner along the stretch of Crystal Beach Drive, I guess it is, who owns property that fronts on the water, would have the ability to create an opening so that they can gain access to the waterfront. But it wouldn't be the town of Fort Erie, because we have no legal standing.
We may actually be in the same position again if those people who blocked it realize that, like if the other owners don't open it, the town really has no position in causing it to be opened. Right? So basically, we're hoping that better decisions are made in regards to Graver Avenue, and it's not blocked.
Okay. Anything further? All in favor of the amended minutes? Thank you. Are there new business inquiries? Yes, you were.
Yeah, so Chair, I just wanted to make sure that we're clear, and maybe Mr. Jansen can explain where we are in terms of the reopening of Town Hall. We're all here in the council chambers. There had been a memo sent out at the end of February that I know you thought had us going on a path. We had a meeting last week. We're now here in a similar situation in terms of seating and what have you. What is the staff's position with respect to the council chambers, councillors, staff, and the public? Because we have a large public meeting next week, or I'm anticipating it will be large.
So yeah, the town staff had expected that beginning this month that we would be in a position to be, well, certainly be open to the public, but then with council arrangements and so on, that it would be more of a back to normal. Of course, we do have an expectation that we'll be reviewing some hybrid options in the future, and that's something I think council has suggested maybe brought forward to the April 25th meeting. But we have said until council can have a better discussion on that we would continue in this current format for council, but that for the public, that we will be encouraging them to wear masks when visiting in the chambers, and that there will be seating available on a first come first served basis. So I know there is expectation as well for next week in particular for there to be more of the public present. We have anticipated that and said we would plan on making some chairs and some seating available also in the atrium area. So there's a few options we have such as that, but we're open to any council direction on that.
Thank you.
I just want to make one statement on that. Sometimes the confusion starts when we're given 4 or 5 different options on which a hybrid meeting can take place. So I know that in Councillor Zanko's business, a lot of the trade shows for her business is up and running now. So there's going to be times when she will be away, yet able to take a council meeting from whether she be in Montreal or someplace else. And it kind of takes away from the fact that when you are away, yet you want to be a part of council, that Zoom meeting is not available. And so I think Zoom helps when, when you're playing catch up, especially when you're here as a part-time counselor who has a job as well. And sometimes that job takes you out of town. And if you're afforded that Zoom meeting to come in and be with us to make decisions based on things in her ward as well as the town overall, I kind of think that we should be making that available. So despite what people think, I mean, COVID's over kind of, sort of, but who knows what could come in the future. So I just kind of feel that that was one of the options, I believe, that was in Mr. Cookett's email. If you were away or if you were even on holiday, that you could Zoom in. And I would like to see that at least reinstated for a short period of time until we're absolutely done with whatever problems we're going to have in the future with COVID or COVID-related things. So I don't know how council feels about it. It's just my opinion. I like to see all councillors here. And if a councillor can be afforded an opportunity to be here when they're out of town, I think that's just a big thing for all of us. Councillors are councillors. They want to take part. And I don't really see anything wrong with trying to have Zoom meetings to accommodate them. Your Worship?
3 things. Number 1, we have a policy right now that provides for that, for councillors to Zoom in under certain circumstances. 2, there is a notice of motion that's been given for this matter to be discussed at the April 25th meeting, and the business status report indicates that staff will be preparing a report with respect to that. And 3rd, when you're the chair, you have to give up the chair if you want to speak to an issue. So just wanted to, I know.
Not the first time I've said that.
Just thought I'd rein you in. Okay, that's fair enough.
Councillor Butler?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So there's a couple of things for me was when we first started back last week and we had this seating arrangement, it was my understanding that we would continue in that manner until April 25th, when we could have that discussion and vote properly with respect to Councillor Zanko's motion. And that was kind of an easement back into council chambers until we got used to the idea that we were going to be in closer proximity. So that was one thing. And then the other thing is that when we agreed to the, I think it was September 2020 motion, and said that we would all come back to chambers, I don't know that at that time we understood that how significantly things had changed and how wonderful our staff was in accommodating Zoom meetings and being able to create that hybrid. So I think the expectations that we have currently have changed from that point in time of 2020 because we've seen how it worked. It does work well. Yes, it's great to be in person and you know, it feels good to be with everybody, but in those instances when you know that it's going to be a very, very long night, it might be an opportunity for someone to say, I don't want to travel the hour there and the hour back home, not for me, but for staff as well. I'm just giving a staff example, and be able to zoom in from that place so that it's not now 8 hours as opposed to the 6 hours like last Monday night. And if we are going to continue in that manner where we have council in the chambers, then I think that we have to look at accommodations as a go-forward basis. Those are my thoughts. Thanks.
Anybody else? And we'll move to the business status report. Seeing none, back to you, Your Worship.
Thank you very much, Councillor McDermott. Scheduling of meetings. Councillor Noyes.
Yes, there's a senior advisory committee meeting on this coming Wednesday at 10 o'clock at the Douglas Heights Senior, and this is our first meeting in, I think, 2.5 years.
That's April the 6th, and what time did you say
No,
that is?
it's 2 days from today.
Wednesday, April 6th.
Wednesday. Oh, it's 6th. I thought you said 16th. Yeah, 6th.
What time did you say?
10 o'clock.
10 a.m. Anyone else? There is a CB Crystal Beach Business Improvement Association meeting tomorrow night at 6 p.m. Casa Hugo. If there are no other meetings, then Councillor Dubanow.
Yes, Your Worship, I don't know who won the over-under, but I would like to move that council and committee adjourn at 7:42 p.m. to reconvene into council and committee on April 11th, 2022.
All those in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you all.